Infinimist Shadowblight is the craziest spec for AoE farming and will give you the easiest tier 100 nightmare dungeon you have ever achieved. Let's see how we do that. As you can see, we are using Reap, the Enhanced Reap and Acolyte's Reap to be able to generate corpses the instant we are entering a fight with our first Reap. That's really important for corpse tendrils and then corpse explosion, which we go into great detail later on during the video. Then we don't even have a spender or a core skill. Instead, we take Hued Flesh 3 out of 3 and then move on to the next category. We want to have Blood Mist, we want to have Enhanced Blood Mist, which doesn't really do that much, but we want Ghastly Blood Mist, which is going to help us create even more corpses while we are blood misting. Then we want to invest 5 out of 5 points into Corpse Explosion and then Enhanced Corpse Explosion as well as the Blighted Corpse Explosion. That is going to convert our Corpse Explosion damage to Darkness damage and is going to deal damage over time. That's really important here. You will see why during the video. Then 1 point in Grim Harvest to be able to unlock Fueled by Death, which we are going to invest 3 points in. Then next up, Death's Embrace, because we are very, very close. This is going to help us deal more damage and sustain more damage. Then Amplify Curse, because we are using Decrepify with Enhanced Decrepify, which is going to have a lucky hit chance to stun, which is also really important because we are stacking a lot of lucky hit effects and lucky hit on gear. So this will actually proc quite often. Then Abhorrent Decrepify, one more lucky hit thing, which is going to help us reduce the cooldown of our skills. Also a very nice mechanic, which I will go into any second here. Then we are going to Corpse Tendrils. We want 5 points here to reduce the cooldown to quite a lot. We will also increase our corpse skills on the gear, so this will go even further down. And then we want Enhanced Corpse Tendrils and, really important, the Blighted Corpse Tendrils to create more Blood Orbs. I will show you why during the aspects section. Then we take everything in the Shadow Cluster just to deal more damage, be faster, have a chance to stun. And here at the almost last category, we want to have Standalone and Memento Mori because we are sacrificing all of the minions. And then we want to go into Bone Storm, Prime Bone Storm and Supreme Bone Storm to have something that constantly triggers damage and therefore has a high lucky hit chance, and is going to use our X-Files Corroded Signet or proc that Signet, which is going to deal huge amount of damage. And last but not least, we want to have our Shadow Blight, which is going to be scaling with our shadow damage and is also on top of that getting a multiplier that is new with Season 2. As you can see on the last sentence here, Shadow Blight's damage is increased by 100% of your shadow damage over time bonus. So whenever you're getting shadow damage over time, the Shadow Blight's damage is on top of that also going to be increased. A very nice double dipping mechanic that we are going to make use of with gear and Paragon. Speaking of Paragon, let's have a look here. We are going with a total of 5 Paragon boards. I suggest you check them out in the link in the description or also in the pinned comment down below. We are stacking a lot of shadow damage. We want to also have a lot of legendary nodes because they are quite helpful for the Infinimist build, and all of the glyphs that we are using are scaling glyphs. So the further you get into the game, the more points you are unlocking in your Paragon glyph boards, the stronger you are going to become. And level 100 is going to be crazy when it comes to scaling because your damage is going to go through the roof with all of the scaling glyphs right here. The Paragon glyph leveling is going to be fairly easy up until level 15 because you will just level the glyphs up to level 15 as you encounter them on your Paragon board, which means you are going to start out with Darkness, then next up Imbiber, Territorial, Scourge and Exhumation last to 15. It is going to change a little bit to level 21. For this, you gotta level them this way. You start out with Darkness, then you take Scourge to 21, afterwards Territorial, Exhumation and Imbiber. For the gear and aspects, we are going to start out by going through the aspects, and then you can also see the corresponding stats that you need on the screen and also down in the pinned comment or in the description below. When you are on the site, you just scroll down a little bit, then you have all the gear stats right here in a simple list, or if you mouse over the item slot, you can instantly spot which items I want you to get on your items. Also, we are going to start out with Aspect of Embalmer, which is going to allow us to get blood orbs whenever we are consuming a corpse with a slight % chance here. And we are going to combo this with the Fast Blood aspect, which is going to allow us to reduce our ultimate cooldown by 1 to 1.5 seconds each time we are picking up a blood orb. This way we can reset our Bone Storm over and over again. We want to do that because our ultimate shadow aspect here is going to turn the Bone Storm damage into darkness. As you can see, Bone Storm has a 40% lucky hit chance, which is triggering all the time. Therefore, when you are constantly Bone Storming, you actually have a lot of chances to trigger the lucky hits that we have been talking about in the skill tree, and most importantly, the lucky hit on X-Files Corroded Signet. This damage right here is your main source of damage and is actually copying the damage type that you are dealing. Since we converted Bone Storm also to shadow damage, the X-Files Corroded Signet is going to deal shadow damage. With all the crazy shadow damage scaling that we have in the Paragon tree and also on the gear, that ring is going to giga nuke the whole screen. I've seen 2.5 million crits very, very easily, and I didn't even have best in slot gear yet. I was still missing a lot of multipliers for the shadow damage, so I'm quite sure if you invest a lot of time in your Infinimist gear, you are going to see crazy crits above 4 million. Now, with the combo out of the way, let's go into the rest of the aspects. We want to have Disobedience for that additional survivability. This is actually something that you can swap out when you are softcore specifically. I think maybe even on hardcore you can swap that out because you are just so tanky with your permanent uptime on Blood Mist, and on top of that with all the damage reduction that you're getting from the permanent Bone Storm. On top of that you have so many lucky hits that are going to CC or stun specifically. On top of that, Corpse Tendrils pulls everything in, stuns them, you're getting a lot of CC, you're basically not even taking any damage. If you would want to get rid of Disobedience, you could do that by taking the Blood Artisan's Caress, which is going to basically give you a free Bone Spirit because we are picking up so many Blood Orbs. Or you could also go with Soul Brand, which is probably a little bit better than the Blood Artisan's Caress because this one is going to turn your healing pot into a barrier generator and is going to give you barrier all of the time. On top of that, is going to reduce the damage you take while you have a barrier active, which would be a great combo together with our aspect of Shielding Storm. In my opinion, that aspect is a crazy defensive aspect, probably the best one for the build that you can run because it is constantly going to give you a barrier for all of your life. And on top of that, every time you take damage, it's basically going to instantly replenish because your Bone Storm is just constantly replenishing the barrier by dealing damage. And on top of that, our Bone Storm is going to be reset over and over again because we are going to pick up the Blood Orbs, further reducing the cooldown of our bones. Then our absolute needed aspect here on the boots, aspect of Explosive Mist, which is going to reduce the Blood Mist cooldown by quite a lot, basically generating an almost permanent Blood Mist. And then aspect of Decay for more damage, and then blighted aspect on the amulet as our strongest offensive aspect, which is going to be amplified by the amulet slot. For the uniques, it's extremely nice as soon as you are going to find X-Files Corroded Signet. This is definitely not mandatory, but your damage is going to skyrocket whenever you find this one. This one is available from Ubaduriel. I've gotten like 10 of those when I was killing Ubaduriel, so they are not really rare when you are killing Ubaduriel. And they can also drop in the overworld, but that chance seems to have been drastically decreased. So don't worry if you don't have that one. It is just going to be a win more button for the build, basically. But as soon as you have it, instantly equip it because your damage is going to go through the roof, enabling all those crazy crits way, way higher than 1 million. And what you also should be doing or should try out is the Howl from Below on the Glyphs. You would get rid of the Blood-Soaked aspect because this one is quite a lot of quality of life. By using Howl from Below, you are actually not getting rid of lucky hit chance because Howl from Below has that on top. But you get a lot of quality of life because every time you use your corpse explosion, there is going to be a basically corpse running at the enemies and then exploding, leaving the shadow damage over time just below them. But it's not mandatory. You can definitely play with the blood-soaked aspect here and then just check out the stats that you need, for example, Shamdo damage over time, lucky hit chance, and intelligence for the Glyphs. I suggest you try this out, and I'm actually trying out way more stuff over on Twitch. I'm actually trying out T-Bolt's Will, which is crazy synergetic with the build. Then we also have Black River, which is going to be probably not the best setup, but still gonna try that one out. And it looks like Lidless Wall is going to be very, very good when it comes to speed farming. Also more stuff like Andariel's Visage, because I was actually that lucky to get it. And then stuff like Flicker Step to further reduce our ultimate's cooldown. If you're interested in this type of testing, make sure to check out the Twitch. The link will be down in the description and in the pinned comment below. The class mechanic for the Infinimist build is fairly easy because we want to sacrifice our Reapers on the Skeletal Warriors. Then on the Skeletal Mages, we want to sacrifice the Cold Mages to get more vulnerable, which is not really that big, but it's the best thing we can take here. And then for the Golem, we want to sacrifice the Blood Golem, or if you want that little bit more attack speed, you could also sacrifice the Bone Golem to get 10% more. The Vampiric Powers are a little combo that we are using, and that one starts with having a Cursed Touch, which is a lucky hit, which we have a lot of, if you remember. This one is going to apply a Vampiric Curse to almost all of the enemies. As you can see on the screen, all of them have that little red skull on top of their head, and if they have that, they are going to be vulnerable because of Prey on the Weak, and will also get a 16% additive bonus on top of that. Then we also play Metamorphosis to move around the map way, way faster. And we want to use Hectic. That here is optional. You can try out stuff like Undying or Hemomancy. This one is definitely optional, and you can play around with this a little bit, because I don't find us using Reap, our basic skill, a lot to reduce our cooldown, but that one definitely helps when you don't have that much cooldown reduction on your gear to get that Bone Storm back faster. Last but not least, we want to have Anticipation, which is going to be drastically reducing the cooldown of our Bone Storm, and the Bone Storm damage is going to be increased tremendously because every time that a enemy is affected by our damage over time effects, the ultimate skill, therefore Bone Storm, is going to deal 12% increased damage. Since we have everything basically shadow dotted or dotted, the damage of our Bone Storm is going to skyrocket without any ceiling whatsoever. For the combo or rotation, you're going to start out with reaping the enemy pack to generate one additional corpse. Then you can use your corpse tendrils into Decrepify, activate your Bone Storm to damage everything around you, then start with Corpse Explosion, and then if you are getting lazy or if you're taking a lot of damage, you start with your Blood Mist. For the pros and cons, it's actually crazy what Infinimist can do. You definitely have one of the craziest AoE damage in the game, and even without big best-in-slot gear, I was able to clear a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon after farming for just one day on the build. My Glyphs have been just about level 15, nothing on level 21. One was on 18, the others were barely on level 15, and I was very easily doing a tier 100 after not even having optimized gear yet. On top of that, you almost have permanent invulnerability because your Blood Mist is resetting its cooldown over and over, and so does your Decrepify lucky hit chance help you with it, and also the Hectic Vampiric Power is also reducing your cooldowns. This is probably resulting in your easiest tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon clear ever. On top of that, you can actually speed farm very well with the build with just minor adjustments. For example, Lidless Wall to be a little bit faster, and then you can also use your Ghostwalker aspect to move around the map together with Metamorphosis for 25% more movement speed. This is actually really, really important, especially when you are leveling up your Glyphs and if you are hunting for better gear to start tackling that tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon. The only downside to this build is its very low single target damage. As you can see here, I'm fighting the T100 Nightmare Dungeon boss, which is level 154, and I'm just slowly chugging it down. But I do have to be honest, this just is a time sink. There is literally absolutely no danger whatsoever. You literally cannot die here. It's basically just a timer that you have to run down until the boss is dead. And again, the damage here is not the full potential, because I have just been farming for that one day, which was like 7 hours or so, to improve the gear just a little bit. And I also only had one glyph on level 18 and the others have been on level 15. So your damage is going to be way higher than mine here in this part of the video. And on top of that, the X-Files Corroded Signet was actually not a max roll. So there was even more damage that is basically not yet gotten out of the build. And you guys will definitely deal way more damage in single target when you are committing a bit more time to the build. During this video, I tried out a little bit of a new format, so I really need your guys' feedback if that was a little bit more interesting for you, or how you did like it or didn't like it. I'm really curious what you guys have to say about this. On top of that, if you are interested in way more Infinimist testing, I'm going to be live right now on Twitch, so come say a quick hi. Let's check out what we can find out even more about Infinimist. Also a lot more testing with Soulbrand, Black River and stuff alike. And if you like content similar to this, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and I'll see you next time.